Welcome to the 2012 edition of TSL Talk. It seems only like last week we were covering another pretty successful season for the Tigers, and my co-host Adam Smith was leading St Aidan's to a state T20 and SCA premiership. But we're back again for another year of TSL footy.
It comes around pretty quick, doesn't it? Your cricket season finishes, footy starts, and we're ready to rumble.
Just thinking off the top of my head, with the changes in the off-season, is this the only TSL show on air anywhere now?
Oh, you'd like to think so, wouldn't you? There's no football coverage. I think we might bump our viewership up to maybe 3 figures if we're a bit lucky, I reckon. So
3 figures, that's good. Yeah, well, what do you make of the ditching of the ABC television? I mean, by the sound of it, it's half a dozen one way, 6 way the other, but you know, ABC required more money. AFL TAS got more money from the AFL, but the clubs weren't keen on it, and you can understand the northern clubs, they don't get a lot of coverage, but it does take a bit of a prestige away from the competition, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a great disappointment. You know, these clubs were getting out there, and people were seeing them if they couldn't get. You know, you sit in the lounge room on a rainy day, and it makes it tough. You can't understand where ABC are coming from. You can definitely understand where AFL TAS are coming from. You know, the money that's needed from ABC to ship these games around. So, look, let's hope it doesn't deter from the competition too much, and you know, with a bit of luck, maybe some people will start rolling in, and we'll get a few more at the game instead of sitting at home.
And I think we're still waiting on what the broadcast is going to be, or what the media coverage is going to be electronically at the moment.
Yeah, you'd assume it'll be some sort of highlights package, wouldn't you? I think, you know, sort of wrapped up into a 4 or 5 minute package where you just see some clips from each game. So at least, you know, we get out there and look. We've probably seen some kids get drafted from clubs coming down and getting some footage. So let's hope it continues.
And there's, I believe you got some news on a bit of a change to the sub rule.
Oh look, groundbreaking, isn't it? We can TSL talk, and we've got an exclusive straight up. Don't know how much it is, but yeah, the sub rule, which of course has been in the AFL now for a year, is coming into the TSL. Slightly different. There will be 4 bench players and a sub. That sub will be an over 21 player. I've been told from Sean Young that sort of to utilise, most clubs wanted to get a guy who was a bit older who couldn't play in the Colts to get, you know, more game time to some guys, and from people coming back from injuries. So be interesting to see how that one pans out, but I guess if you're not losing a player off the bench, it should work out okay.
Is this just to keep like a player who's a reserves player at the club?
You'd have to suggest, yeah, probably, isn't it? You know, there's been a lot of controversy about what's happening with players having to move because they were too old for the Colts level, but probably not good enough or weren't in the best 22 for seniors. So hopefully, you know, those players will stay there and they can get half a game, especially if they're coming back from injury. It'll work well in that regard, I think.
And we're now to the season openers. We've got 3 games this week. Starting the first game of the season is Burnie v North Hobart at Westpac at 3 p.m.
Yeah, look, it's 2 of the clubs that have been touted out as premiership contenders, aren't they, in the pre-season. Burnie, of course, lost the grand final last year. Have picked up a couple of handy players from what we understand, and North Hobart have done likewise. So this will be a really, really good match to kick the season off.
It's amazing the change of players on the North West Coast. They seem to go from one club to the other. Now we see a heap of Devonport players who had the season playing with Ulston, and in the other NTFL clubs like Trent McCrossan and Vin Ponsonby. Now they're all playing for Burnie. It's a funny culture up there, isn't
it? It is. They sort of float back and forward, don't they? They've all played for 4 or 5 different clubs just in a little region. But you know, Burnie, you look at some of the guys they've got. Vin Ponsonby is the big one, I think. He's touted as an AFL draftee a couple of years ago before injury struck him down, so he's a handy addition, and Trent McCrossan, we all know what he can do, so that'll bolster their depth, no doubt.
Some real changes at North Hobart, but probably the most interesting thing is going to be is how they play now they've had a pre-season under Lance Spalding. Yeah, look, he's one of the great tacticians, I think, and he did pretty well when he took over from the Devils, and been in the Mariners program for so long, so he's got a knowledge and know how to do it, and a lot of guys respect him, so what he brings this year will be interesting to see. A few of his former Mariners players have made the way up to North Hobart Oval too, which I think has got the backup of a few clubs.
But yeah, have heard a few whispers that some clubs aren't happy with him, seem poaching some Mariners. But.
And the other game, I suppose, the main interest for us down here will be Lauderdale and Hobart at Lauderdale 5:30. These 2 teams don't seem to get along very well, but it should be an interesting season opener. Yeah,
it will be. It has been moved to 4:30 as well. Come back. Apparently the lights aren't good enough for a full-blown night match yet, so make sure you get there an hour early or you will miss out. And the added interest here is Michael Cassidy, coming from Hobart, probably the best centre-half forward, or second, maybe Andy Lee, take him out. But crossing from Hobart to Lauderdale, that'll create a little bit of extra spice, I would have thought.
And Hobart have lost a few, and there are some doomsayers out there saying it could be a pretty long year for the Tigers.
Yeah, there are. You know, you take away, they haven't just lost players, they've lost quality players. You know, Cassidy, Aaron Hall's gone, their best and fairest, Todd Willing. Guys like this. There was a press conference this morning though, and their captain this year, Trent Harvey, thinks that might be writing him off too soon, and this is what he had to say.
I suppose it's, you know, looking at how many new players we've got into the side. I mean, and we've got a couple of players from over in Melbourne, in Tarquin Netherway and Calvin Philp that haven't played in Tasmania. So I suppose there's a little bit of an unknown quality, and you know, I suppose people can say what they want in regards to how well they think we'll go this year, but until we get on the park the first week, you know, I suppose it's, you know, just speculation.
And I suppose the other one is Lauderdale. Everyone's got high hopes or high expectations on them this season.
Yeah, you know, they've got the Cassidy, Damon Smith's come down from Burnie, they've got Darren Garth, he's an interesting one, he sits on people's heads in the SFL, whether he can bring that form to the TSL will be interesting, but the depth is the big thing there, and again, this morning at the press conference, Bryce Walsh, who's in the Mariners squad, but probably a fringe player a bit last year, we asked him sort of what it meant for guys like him having to push, you know, maybe 25, 30 players now in the mix, and he had a couple of interesting thoughts.
Personally, I think that's real good that you got guys pushing you to play good senior football. When you're struggling, you know that you got to pick your game up. Otherwise, there's guys behind you kicking you out of your spot. So I reckon that's good for the club and good for everyone else to know that you can't just get away with playing bad football.
And the final game of the round, North Lonnie and Devonport up at Aurora at 7 p.m. No problems with the lights up there.
No, not at all. And again, Devonport, Kurt Hazelwood's come back. Whether one man can revive the fortunes of the club, I'm not so sure, but North Launceston, you'll probably think we'll get the job done there.
And they've got some interesting recruits as well.
Yes, yeah, they have. A couple of guys, Sammy Cairns, a former VFL player, has come back. He's brought his brother with him. And the big one we're looking at here is Jordan Cousins, who apparently in the NTFA was named the captain of the year of the side last year. He's only 17 or 16 or something like that. Apparently he's a real goer.
Well, Adam, thanks very much for your thoughts, and thanks for joining us on the first edition of TSL Talk. Join us next week for all your news, and pick up your copy of the Mercury or go to the Mercury online.